Tai Chi 6 form for stress reduction. Opening the door. Parting wild horse's mane. Grasping the bird's tail. Ward off. Roll back. Press. And push. Wave hands like clouds 2 times. That's 1. And 2. The rooster stands on 1 leg. Right. Left. Cross hands and close. And I like to finish with a bow. All right, and so what I'm going to do now is demonstrate it from the back. So if you want, you can try to follow along. You'll probably do just fine. And I'll call out the names of each movement as well. Make sure I'm still on the camera. So, all right. Opening the door. Parting wild horse's mane. Grasping the bird's tail. Ward off. Roll back. Press. And push. Cloud hands 2 times. 1 and 2. The rooster stands on 1 leg, right, and then left. Cross hands and close. We can finish with a bow. All right, how'd it feel for those that followed along? All right, so once again, they're probably very familiar, but I wanted to have a nice short form that you could learn to start off with, because some of the beginner forms out there are actually pretty complex. And you have your whole life to start progressing down that path and learning longer forms. But I think this is actually an even better place to start than even some of the other forms out there. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is go over some of the principles today, and then each time we'll talk about a different principle, and then we'll go through and break down one of the movements. All right, we'll go through the whole series. All right, so what I wanted to first talk about is posture. All right, so what type of posture should we be in for our Tai Chi? All right, now remember, in the flow, you don't have to get any of this perfect, but this might actually help you feel more comfortable and confident during the flow. All right, so when we start off, we'll just start from the beginning. What should the posture be like when we start in the beginning position? So sometimes I just call it beginning position or preparation. All right, so we usually start with the feet together or as close as you can. All right, and so the first thing you want to do is make sure you feel your feet connected with the earth. You want to feel really present and rooted. All right, and so once you feel stable, spread your feet out a little bit wider if you don't. Because if you're wobbling, then that's not quite where you need to be. So spread it out. You can come out a little bit. So you want to feel rooted. All right, you want to feel nice and stable. All right, then when you feel stable, shift your weight slightly forward. All right, so your weight location should be at the bubbling well. All right, I'll post this in the group, but the bubbling well is an acupressure point. It's basically if you go to the ball of your foot and then go to the center and then down just a little bit. It's like right in the middle of the foot, but near the ball of the foot, but it's not quite at the toes, okay? So you don't want to be on your toes, but you don't want to be on your heels either, because then your abs contract to try to keep you from falling. We want to be soft. Okay, so in Tai Chi, we say softness overcomes hardness. All right, so we want to make sure we're soft, only using what we need. So we don't need our abs to be super contracted just to stand up. We want a little bit, you know, so that we're upright. But most of us are in really just so much tension that we don't need. All right, so we come slightly forward. So it's almost imperceptible, but just slightly forward so your weight's not quite at the center, just a little bit further. All right, that's going to help relax your abdominals and make you more really in line with gravity in a more efficient way. All right, so that's what we're doing with the feet. The knees are slightly bent. All right, we never usually lock out the legs except when we do some of our kicks, but in some of the other forms in the flow. But in general, just think most of the time, just keep your knees slightly bent. All right, because when you lock out your legs, that can put a lot of stress on the joints. And if you're standing for a long time, it can actually cut off circulation too. So we want to keep the blood flow and the energy flowing by slightly bending the knees. All right, then you want to relax your waist, including your lower back. All right, so everything's kind of nice and soft. And then the hands start off by the legs, on the side of the thighs. All right, now you don't want your elbows to be crunched in. So once again, we want to be soft, so the elbows are open a little bit. But you don't want to force them open, because then you're working the muscles up here too much. So there's really this balance of yin and yang. So activity and restoration, we want a nice balance where we're a little bit engaged, but soft too. It's like being alert but relaxed. All right, and so the shoulders are slightly forward, but barely at all. Just slightly, they sometimes say hollow the chest, but you don't want to be hunched. Okay, so what I mean by that is we just want to be slightly forward so that we're not really, you know, they call it like the military position of attention. So we don't have to be in the military right now. We can just be soft and actually a little forward, but just not hunched. All right, so we go slightly around the shoulders and then soften. All right, then we rise up through the crown of the head. So we do want to get tall through the spine, get as tall as you can, and then relax 5%. All right, that way you're taller, but you're not rigid. All right, soften the shoulders. Once again, check in with the neck. Make sure it's nice and loose. And then the eyes are looking forward in a relaxed gaze. All right, so once again, it's like you're alert but relaxed. So you want to have this kind of open, spacious vision to where you're just there and relaxed. All right, so that's the starting position. So there's a lot to it, actually. We're not just standing there. So we're really adjusting the posture. So once again, connect with the earth, soften the knees, soften the waist, soften the elbows, shoulders, neck, get tall through the spine, soften 5%, and then have a relaxed and alert gaze. Now that's it in a nutshell. That's the beginning position. All right, and then we'll just do the footwork for the opening the door. Okay, so opening the door, the first thing we do is we shift all our weight into the right leg. Lift the left leg, step out hip width apart or shoulder width apart. For most people, actually, that might be better. Toe first, then heel. And then the knees soften down. Okay, then as we open the door, the arms float up, we get a little bit taller, the hips come a little bit forward, and then we soften back down. All right, let me show you from the side. It's probably a little bit easier, okay? So if we start off in this beginning position where we're alert but relaxed, nice and soft, Okay, so we step the left foot out to the side. Okay, and then from here, the knees are still slightly bent. And then as the arms lift, the hips come slightly forward. And then the hips and knees soften, the hands come down to the waist. All right, and so this is the kind of where we finish at the end of the opening the door movement. And so we want to make sure that our hips and our pelvis is neutral. Okay, so sometimes you might see people saying tuck the tailbone under, but that's actually not really good for your lower back. And so I worked with a lot of patients with physical therapy, and I found over the years that most people have back issues because of too much rounding, because we're sitting so much and we're in the car a lot or watching TV on the computer. And so if we don't want to necessarily focus on that in our Tai Chi as well, this is a time to get back into neutral and to start to reverse our posture. And so instead, just let your hips just be soft, and the tailbone will sink in where it needs to go, all right, based on your own anatomy. All right, but you don't want to force it into this tucking the tailbone under, so just soften down, okay? And you don't want your knees to go too far forward, so it's more like a gentle sitting back and softening down. All right, so you can look down, you should see your toes. If you don't, that means your knees are too far forward. All right, so soften back, send the hips back a little bit more instead. So hinging from the hips. All right, and so let's do the arms. So I'll do the mirror view for this. All right, so the mirror view meaning, so I'm gonna step my right leg, that's your left, okay? So pour all your weight into the right leg, step the left foot out, shoulder width apart, toe first, then heel. Okay, so we're softened down. Then as the arms float up, we rise up. And then the arms float down, softening the hips and knees. The hands stop at about the waist. All right, so once again, the elbows are soft, so we're not real extended. We're just nice and soft. All right. One other detail is when you step out to the side, the palms are facing towards your thighs. Instead, now they're going to rotate. So now the palms face away from the front, and then they float up to shoulder height. And once again, they're soft, so you're not real rigid. So nice and soft still. And then once you get to shoulder height, push down to the hips.